Welcome to Stock Therapy with Penny Queen. Today, I have the CEO of Comstock, Corrado de Gasperis. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
All right. Well, I'm excited to speak with you again because I know you have a lot going on. And your last news release came out, and we didn't meet and talk about it. And I think this is a perfect time. So let's talk about RWE.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so it was really exciting. What happened? So just maybe a step back with metals. First step was to get the demonstration facility fully up and running. Second step was to prove that we could make clean, saleable materials. The third step was to ensure that we could do that with 100% of all of those materials. And I want to highlight before I go any further that we've gotten a lot of inquiries. Like there's a lot of companies out there that are aggregating. There's companies that are middlemaning. There's companies that are transporting. Some are trying to recycle panels. We do not know anybody that can take a panel and reuse 100% of those materials and be zero landfill in the solution. You'll see some say, hey, we can do up to half the materials. We can do 70% of the materials. I think one says we can do up to 95% of the materials. What does that mean? 100%. So we did all of that, and that was a critical prerequisite, not only achieving it, proving it, but then operating it continuously all the time until we got at least 6 months under our belt. Now we've been doing it for a year, over a year now. But in fairness, it's probably just coming up to a year where everything's been running the way that we wanted it to. We expected bugs, we debugged it, all of that. Then we had two more steps. One was engineer the industry scale, the big warp core, a panel every 7 seconds, 100,000 tons a year. And we submitted all those permits in November. So we're actually quite excited about, a few more months from now, we should be hearing things back. We always had targeted the end of this year. What have we been doing in the meantime? Going after the market. Going after the market with a certifiable zero landfill solution, with a certifiable scalable solution, not conceptual. Come and visit, kick the tires, kick the machines, look at the buildings. And companies like RWE are the most diligent, visited the site a number of times. Some of them channel check all the way down through the offtake.
Wow.
It's really remarkable, and up until now, there's been no process to certify, with a third party, this type of capability. But CIRI, the organization that certifies recycling and these types of activities, has just issued new protocols just for this type of activity. We're deep into that process as well. But what is really important is we're able to engage the largest utility companies, the largest engineering firms, the largest manufacturing companies, and survive their diligence all the way through. And in some cases, they go to the, quote unquote, the competition. But if the competition can't say, I can handle millions of panels, if the competition can't say it's zero landfill, then it's not sufficient. It doesn't meet minimum sufficiency. So RWE is, I think they're the most diligent. I think I don't know if this was by intelligent design, but we started with the hardest customer, and it's been a remarkable journey. And in that, deep into that process, and thank God we were deep into that process, they had a circumstance where a nature event disabled a meaningful number of panels. And they were like, hey, can you handle all this? And you saw in the press release, we've received 4 million pounds. That's 2,000 tons, and not only did we handle the business, we added decommissioning services. We dealt with, mucky undermined, disrupted solar fields, restored everything. I mean, it was just a remarkable thing that resulted in them saying, hey, we should partner on end of life solutions. In part because it's becoming so critical to the equation, and in part because as they're going to get approvals on new projects, local counties, county commissioners, local landfills are saying, what's your end of life solution?
Yeah.
You got to have it up front. Needless to say, it was all successful. That's what the press release tried to articulate. But it also, if you back calculate it, it means we're cranking on our guidance for this year. So we did, just as a reminder, we did about 400,000 tons, I'm sorry, $400,000 of revenue last year. We guided to 2.5 million of billings this year. Okay. We're going to be pretty far on that target just in the first quarter alone.
Beautiful.
Which means a remarkable growth uh, profile to be demonstrating. Now, some of that, as you know, but maybe others don't, some of that is revenue right away if we're doing decommissioning services and other things. Some of it's deferred until all of it's processed, but all of it's cash, right? We bill it, get an invoice, get paid. So we're really feeling darn good about what that portends to the future. If you look at the top 10 or top 20, needers of these services, for lack of a better way to describe them, we're on all of them. We are just literally engaged in the market. And we're happy to prove our capabilities. We're happy to be audited. We're happy. We actually prefer that you channel check our offtake and show that it's zero landfill because we're reasonably confident that our quote unquote competition, which we respect the people out there, can't certify all the things that we can. And quite honestly, a lot of them are not full end of solution recyclers. Some of them are outstanding aggregators or outstanding um, connectors, or they play a part in the supply chain that's pretty important. We typically think of them more as partners than competitors. We work with many of them.
So I bet you're happy you have all that storage.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And we're not even taking it for granted, but it's just to hear you say it again. Having that storage and having that massive facility on the same campus as the demonstration facility with hindsight was just a godsend. And we have submitted, I mentioned to you that we submitted last year the permitting for the industry scale facility, but we just submitted a few months ago expanded storage right alongside that huge facility. And in May and June, we're going through the process with the local county of getting that approved, which we feel great about. So not only do we have storage, we're going to have even more storage, on
Nice.
top of it, right next door. Like, there's guidelines about the prerequisite amount of separation between, site A and site B, and we meet all those.
That's really exciting. I mean, I've said this and I probably sound like a broken record to anyone who's watched all of our videos, but you have three primary, very complex and seemingly unrelated stories going on at the same time, but it thrills me to have revenue like this going on because they are very different, but I feel like one in a way proves the others. Like, look at them. They're actually doing the thing. They're doing the thing that they told us about. And here it is. But as you dive deeper, like all of your business segments are getting more exciting. I mean, do you want to mention the price of gold right now? Do you want to talk about what's going on in the commodities and mining and how that's shaping up?
Yeah, I think I would like to say that, many people, have talked about just disposing of those assets or, dismissing those assets. It's unfortunate that the market has not recognized but it's really worth repeating. We have a 12 square mile district. It's fully entitled. We maintained all permits intact, and we stopped mining when gold was at 1,030 an ounce. To see it hit 3,500, even 3,300, 3,330, these numbers are remarkable, and we have so much silver. And to see silver move, from the teens to 33, and
That's
everyone feels like silver's lagged and silver's dragged and silver is yet to break out, remembering that both Comstock Metals and Comstock Mining are rich on the silver thesis. We could not be sitting in a better position to capitalize on these variables.
any silver bulls have been talking and talking about the pricing difference, and it makes me very excited as someone who stacks both silver and gold because I can't help myself.
I love that.
It gets me so excited because what is it, 1 to 8 or 1 to 10, the ratio of coming out of the ground? I think it depends who you ask.
Well, it depends on the deposit. In our case, on a macro basis, we were at 20 ounces of silver for every ounce of gold. As we move south, it gets closer to 8 to 10 ounces of silver per ounce of gold. We literally averaged 20 ounces of silver poured for every ounce of gold poured between 2012 and 2016, which means because we were yielding 90% gold and only 60% silver, it means the ratio in the ground was even higher. So we love that. The
I
Nevada is nicknamed the Silver State solely because of the Comstock lode. And then as we look forward, to splitting the companies into a Nevada-based metals and mining company and an Oklahoma-based fuels company, you know, I'm going to start sending, Ned Goodman or his son an email. I'm going to start sending Eric Sprott an email. You want to talk about a silver mine that never depletes? I mean, sincerely, I mean, literally. I'll tell you a funny story. We were in Vegas for this microcap conference, and a royalty company came up and said, "What do you do?" And I started talking about the recycling solar panels. Oh yeah, that's not our business. Hold on, hold on. Let me finish the dialogue, right?
Yeah.
And and then it was like, what? This notion of a silver mine that never stops producing, this notion that when we pour these ounces, we don't deplete a reserve is still difficult. It's a difficult paradigm for people to get their head around. But I love saying it, I love antagonizing it, because if you come to diligence us to disprove that, you're going to leave as an investor.
Yeah.
You're going to leave as an investor.
Y-
What is RWE? They're a 43101 resource. What is PG&E? They're a 43101 resource. What is Florida Light Power? They're a 43101 resource. And if you're American, then we'll say they're an SK 1300 resource.
Yeah, it's
That's
it
our resource.
pardon the cat. It's one of those things that you just you can't see it on the surface, and I think a lot of people can't see it even if they are actively looking at the company, that they're missing this thing, that the fact that it doesn't run out,
Yeah.
and that it's not I mean there's other recycling plays out there, but none of them are 100%. That's
They're
the
not
thing.
at
So
scale to this size. That's just as
yes.
right. So, but let me say this, it's fair to say we haven't seen it yet. Okay. To really see it and really accept that, the revenue increases that you just referred to will go a long way. But maybe more importantly, who are those with? And then where is their ore? Their ore is not tens, not hundreds, but literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of panels. And I'm not exaggerating because the real number is billion. Okay. But like, that's what we're talking about. So securing that resource is the work we've been doing for the last 6 months, culminating in that RWE. But that RWE is just the first one to cross the finish line.
So, so you're out there staking your claims.
We're staking our claims.
Yeah.
But also when I say they cross the finish line, what I really mean is a really big, large scale order. We've already had dozens cross the finish line with test orders. That's where all the other revenue come from. But they want to make sure we can do what we say we're going to do. So it's just now it's a matter of time. So it's exciting as heck. I mean, really exciting.
Well, that's a big catch. I was excited to see it. I don't think the market truly picked up how important it was, but that's okay. Anytime the market misses something, it's opportunity for someone else.
This will help. I mean, just we do want it to permeate. We want to iterate it. We want to make sure we clarify it. But it's not static. It's going to keep growing. It's going to keep growing.
I'm excited for it. That's I mean, if we want to talk on the mining side, it's such beautiful property out there. I mean, it's gorgeous. I recommend anyone go on through and have a look. But looking at the history down there is really impressive. And I know I'm a big history nerd and I'm a huge fan of mining and mining done right, but it is really cool out there.
Remarkable. I came out 15 years ago, with zero intention, staying, and it's just gorgeous. The whole landscape is gorgeous.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about fuels. We can talk about site selection. Um,
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Yeah, going full speed now. So we did announce in the first quarter that we selected Oklahoma, as our destination. That triggered the first million out of 3 million grant that was given to us. The first trigger was commit to Oklahoma, open office, we did. Second trigger was select a site, and I'll get to that in a sec. And then the third trigger is, advance the site, spend about 5 million towards the preparation of that first refinery. And so we've spent we had a week-long full team. I can't tell you how many sites we looked at, okay? But there's just so much opportunity there. I mean, we're driving through lands where it's flat as anything. If you didn't know better, you'd think it was just farmland everywhere, except you see these little oil wells pumping. So you're literally in a place where you have farms and fuel in one geography. And we're like, if we chat GPT'd, show us what would be a perfect location for us. That was for an example, if you will. Some right on ports, some right on rail yards.
Yeah.
I mean, the infrastructure is remarkable. So we're this close from picking, site number one, but we've got three that we would pick all three. It's like when Elon Musk was looking for his gigafactory, narrow it down to three sites. I want all three, I'm just gonna do, I'll take Nevada, I'll take Texas, let's keep going. So that's really exciting, and we're getting very, very close. Where the collaboration with Hexas is just remarkable because, we visited the Department of Agriculture together in Oklahoma, us and Hexas. We visited the governor's office, right? We visited with economic development and local industrial people. We visited with farmers. We visited with industrialists, and that was all part of that same trip, that I mentioned. And the idea of starting with a demonstration plot, right? So that we can educate people on how remarkable Hexas is. We can educate people how it grows and how it doesn't spread and how it's fully controlled. And people's jaws drop. They just drop when they understand that, soybean can produce 2 barrels of oil per acre per year. Corn can do 10 barrels of oil per acre per year. And when we say 100 barrels of oil per acre per year, and combined with our technology, that yields 140 gallons per ton. You have something extraordinary. You have something truly, truly extraordinary. And so we got incredible reception. So we have those innovations all progressing, and the Series A is engaged. I mean, not only is it engaged and we're making remarkable process, but the population of interest while we're progressing with the core team, the core participants, we keep adding participants to the equation. So we have guided to get that done in the second quarter. We're on track. It's a priority. It's like a number one priority. Some of the things that, when we had first announced splitting the companies, which is a second thing, Series A is one thing, splitting the companies is a second thing. When we first announced that, we didn't provide details, and people were, upset about that. It was like, look, we have to be precise here. We have to make sure we do it in the way that's in the best interest of the shareholders. We have a preference of keeping it as simple as possible. All that is also progressing, and we guided that at our annual meeting in May, we would provide details on that. So I've never been busier. You know me, I'm busy. I like being busy. It's fun, but like we really are jamming now. The teams gel, teams are rocking forward, and I want to just reiterate, the notion of having a Permian Basin, an oil well that never stops producing through, farms, the notion of getting 140 gallons per ton of dry woody biomass, that's our existing technology. That's our existing platform. We're doing final engineerings, we're doing final site selections, but then we haven't stopped. We haven't stopped. We have multiple projects under the innovation umbrella that are going forth with various universities, with various counterparties, including the National Renewable Energy Lab. So it's very important for us that people understand we're commercially ready. Here are our metrics. Here's what we're deploying today. Separate from that, right? We have programs that will improve dramatically what we believe are, world leading and industry leading results. So we have 140 gasoline gallon equivalent. It is more than double the next competitor. We have Hexas, which is 10x corn, 50x soybean. We have RenFuel, that is the only solution that can take crude, unstable lignin and esterify it into an oil that can blend with vegetable oils. All of that is integrated into one system. Is it replicable? I don't know how you would do it. If you did it, it would take years and years and years. Some people say your IP portfolio is impenetrable. I think that's an extreme word, but it's hard to imagine it being replicated, which kind of makes it impenetrable. It's not impenetrable because someone can't invent something. It's impenetrable because we've integrated a series of complementary but incredibly different technologies into one system. And that is starting to resonate. People are starting to say, wait a minute, this isn't one thing. And so the other thing that's fascinating is we're deploying the existing solution in an own and operate model. We will own and operate serial number 1 in Oklahoma, and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay. We've already licensed 5 different locations internationally. Okay. So we have a model that is built on speed, not built on control, but our IP is integrated and controlled. So then there's another segment though, and we're now calling it integrations. There's another monetization, there's another commercialization segment that is not owner operated, which we're doing in Oklahoma and beyond, not licensed, which we're doing all over the world. But what does the sugarcane mill do with their bagasse? What does the pulp and paper mill do with their craft lignin? What would a corn ethanol facility do if they knew they could dramatically reduce their feedstock cost by integrating hexes or woody biomass. What would it mean to their revenue if they went from a D3 corn ethanol RIN that'll give them barely $1.50 of additional revenue per gallon to a D4 or a D6 RIN that'll give them $3, $4, $5 a gallon, even more?
Yeah.
That all sounds like a home run if I'm a corn ethanol facility. But
Yeah.
don't forget, in addition to dramatically reducing your cost, in addition to enhancing your revenue on that whole ethanol chain, we're going to add lignin to your facility and triple your yields. You know, people are just getting their head around this. So we've created a whole another commercialization team to monetize integrations. In other words, we don't have to build a standalone refinery. We're doing that in Oklahoma. We can, I hate the word bolt on, but we can bolt on to a pulp and paper mill. We can bolt on to a sugarcane mill. We can enhance and diversify corn ethanol. We can fully retrofit corn ethanol. We can expand them into aviation fuel, diesel fuel, et cetera. You see, like it's so versatile in its ability to deploy.
So I mean, first he built this like IP escape room, right? Like a big integrated moat, right? All these different pieces working together. And now you're finding CapEx lighter ways to get money out of them with all the other players that are already in the market in these very different areas, right?
Faster, lower CapEx, right? So throughput is the equation. What motivates us? Throughput. The fastest that you can deploy a decarbonizing fuel solution. It doesn't have to be just us with our own capital. It could be capital zero. It could be, you know, like a pulp and paper mill can say, hey, come and deploy capital and partner with us on our own site. Or they could say, we want to 100% deploy that capital and totally enhance our own site. Or we can retrofit a corn ethanol facility and they spend all the money to enhance their site. Or you can acquire a shutdown ethanol facility and completely convert it into cellulosic, lignin cellulosic. It's not endless opportunities, but there's many, 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 many. And people are starting to figure out, especially in this incredible sustainable aviation fuel market, the 800-pound gorilla, okay, the explosion of demand, that none of the solutions that people are announcing can meet a fraction of the gallons that they need. They're just starting to realize it. I mean, literally companies that went away from us 2 years ago and said they're going to do something different now have come back and said the other thing is insufficient.
There's lots of cool chemistry out there, but it's benchtop, right? Like it doesn't scale it's just not feasible with the systems that we have existing.
It
And I've
doesn't,
looked,
yeah, either it doesn't scale or it's mature and requires insane amounts of capital with low yields, or it doesn't have a feedstock that it doesn't use a feedstock that's sufficient to unlock any material supply, or it's one very, very niche piece of the solution. Now, the niche pieces of the solution, you could look at Renfuel as a niche piece of the solution. You could look at EFT's gas to liquid conversion as a niche piece of the solution. You could even look at Hexas as a niche piece of the solution. You can produce a gazillion tons of woody biomass. What are you going to do with it? Watch it diminish, watch it perish. So the key is sufficiency. We love to use the word minimum sufficiency, and some people think that that's a small word. No, minimum sufficiency means holistically, it totally works. So everything we do is driven by throughput and minimum sufficiency, which means the need for speed and the need to be thorough are not in conflict. Throughput, speed, minimum sufficiency, thorough. You combine those two, you achieve the goal. That's why we often say, you have a great tech, you'll never achieve the goal. You have a great piece of the solution. It's necessary, but not sufficient. This is our thinking. This is how we think. So now you say, what about that the reason you and I got reconnected was that NREL article came up. Now,
Ah,
well, where's NREL? Where does NREL play in this? It's remarkable. It's remarkable. We're sitting at our desks, working our butts off, 18 months ago over the summer. And David or Kevin, I can't remember who read the initial white paper that MIT and NREL, put out. And we're reading about an organosolve type solution that treats lignin. We're like, what? That sounds a little too close for comfort. And David, of course, who was like, engaged across the world and across the industry, it was like, oh, I have an appointment at NREL in a few weeks because we're talking about, borrowing a digester. Let me check in and see what's going on. Checks in, and they kind of freaked us out at the beginning. They're like, are you guys married to butanol? Are you married to organosolve? And we're like, hey, we're open-minded, but you're kind of scaring the crap out of us right now. Like, that's our core technology.
yeah.
And they immediately reaffirmed, like, we believe that system, that solution is the solution, or at least one of the leading solutions. And we wanted to reach out to you and see if there was a way to, jointly file a grant to advance our work. And we were like, oh, okay, before we talk about that, show us your work. We just want to remind you, it's a little too close for comfort on the IP side.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, 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 no. We don't want to infringe on IP. We're not infringing. We want to partner with you. Show us what you're doing. So they took David through the whole thing. And David was like, forget the grant right now. Let's fast track this process. Let's fund this research. Let's go. And then within 5 months or some incredibly fast date, we were fully engaged with them. We built designs of experiments. We built spend plans. We signed a CRADA, which is, collaborative research and development agreement, the standard, national lab basis. We got exclusivity to all of the core tech and the developments that will result from, us collaborating and partnering with them. And what does it all mean? Well, it could potentially mean simplification of our process. It could cut a step or two out of our process. That could be a 30% reduction in operating expense. That could be a 30% reduction in CapEx. It could mean higher yields, more energy from the same source. But it could also mean lignin has natural, it's a natural inherent source of aromatics. It's a natural inherent source of the enabler of sustainable aviation fuel. So instead of doing unnatural chemistries and unnatural things, could we unlock lignin and shatter that blend wall? That's
That's what I want to hear right there.
that's
Will
the
you explain the blend wall to
yeah. So
everyone else that's less of a nerd?
yeah. Let me use ethanol as the classic example and then switch to SAF. So in ethanol, because of the way that the fuel impacts the engine, you can't put more than 10, maybe 15% of the current molecular ethanol solution, right? Be it in cellulosic or corn or otherwise, into an engine. If you did, it would damage it or not sustain. So you have to blend. So for every gallon of ethanol, that you're putting into your car, you're putting 9 gallons of petroleum-based fuel. So now if you're using 160 billion gallons of fuel for road transportation in the United States alone, then the blend wall for ethanol is 16 billion. It can only be 10% of that solution. So the blend wall inherently, well, first of all, it reduces the carbon impact, right? You're not getting, if ethanol is 30% lower carbon, but you have to blend it, and you only get 10% of that benefit, you're only getting 3% reduction in carbon. That's the first thing. Second thing is you limit your market to 16 billion gallons. So the government incented 16 billion gallons because of the blend wall. And the industry built 200 facilities in like a 7 or 8 year period, and they're making 16 plus billion gallons a year. And if they make more than 16, they send it to Europe. Now, with SAF, it's exactly the same notion, except that you can blend 30, 40, 50% of SAF with Jet A, which is petroleum based. But then again, you're limiting the market for the decarbonizing fuel, which means you're limiting the decarbonizing effect. You're limiting the improvements. So the blend, by shattering the blend wall, I mean, the holy grail would be 100% drop in sustainable aviation fuel. I would pass out. You would have to revive.
That'd be sexy.
You'd have to revive me from a fainting, but that's what we're going for, right? Do we know how far we're going to get? No. Do we have feasibilities? Yes. Are we excited about all the experiments? Absolutely. And so remember, it's not just that, it's reduce CapEx, reduce costs, increase yields, shatter the blend wall. They didn't say shatter the blend wall, in fairness, in the article. They said dramatically tackle it and improve it, but we're going for the Holy Grail.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and leave the article down below in the details of this video, so anybody else can go and they can take a look at it. But that is exceedingly interesting on so many fronts. If you could make the process less complex, that's a huge win. If you could increase, even a fractional increase would make your total addressable market so much larger. That's it. And I have a feeling that you have some numbers in your head that you're not going to let out. And I'll accept that for now.
Yeah.
But that is really, really exciting news. I can't wait to see what's going to happen there. But I'm even more excited that that's not going to stop progress on the build side.
No,
right?
no,
It's just,
thank you for reemphasizing that. We are not waiting for any innovation to deploy. We're commercially ready. I think the other part about that article is people see David, like I had a couple investors email me like, oh man, this guy's worth his weight in gold because he's just on top of things, and it's and that's how we all are, right? We all have different roles within the company, but it's exciting to see it happening.
all right. Well, I guess, I do have to say, I recently put out a partial portfolio update.
Mhm.
And Comstock is a longer update every time. You cannot cover what is at minimum 3 different companies in a 3-minute video. And I got some pretty funny comments back. But I want everyone who is invested in Comstock, who understands what you're trying to do and understands the process, to realize that there isn't going to be news every single day. So if you don't see me out there talking, if you're not out there talking, it doesn't mean that nothing's going on. It means that this is your time to dig in, learn more, and figure out exactly where your conviction is. And if you've been doing that, you've had some really good opportunities in the market, right? This is a dynamic story, and there's a lot to it, but you're working on that Series A, and I know that's a tight-lipped kind of venture. So if you have anything to add on the Series A side, I'd love to hear it. You spoke to it a little bit earlier already,
Yeah.
but if you have anything more, I'd love to hear it. But
say that we're on track for the second quarter. It's growing in terms of interest, but we're laser focused, right? We're laser. There's a little SEAL team within the company that's all we're doing. And it's not because of any negative reasons, it's because it's a lot of work. And the great news is that we haven't had one person start diligence to say, oh, this isn't for us. Like, this, we haven't had one of those. So it's just a question of getting to diligence. If people remember, we Marathon has been working with us for almost 3 years, but the result of that work and the extent that we've advanced it makes everything else quicken, so we're on track. We're very excited, and we're looking forward to announcing that stuff as soon as practical.
all right. So, and everybody can look forward to a little more information in May
Yeah.
on,
Yeah. So thank you. So next week we'll have our normal routine quarterly update, the financial results, the filing of the 10Q, et cetera, et cetera. And then within a few weeks after that, we'll have our annual meeting. So May actually will be quite informative.
so I'm excited for that. I know you've got a lot of work to do. But for all your shareholders, I think it's important to know that a lot of read receipts come out of you at like 2 and 3 in the morning. So you're definitely out there working hard.
For
So,
sure. For sure.
oh, all right. Is there anything else we need to talk about
No,
before
I
we
think
go?
that's great. Just reminding everyone, we're going to be communicating next week. That's, middle of next week. And then the 22nd of May is the annual meeting. Please stay tuned between now and in between all of that for updates.
All right. Excellent. Well, thank you again for joining me, and I will get this out just as soon as I can.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.